Traveling to Consciousness, exploring spiritual journeys to find answers in uncertainty.
What is up, conscious monkeys? Welcome back to another episode of Traveling to Consciousness. As always, I'm your host, Clayton Cuteri. And in today's podcast, I'm going to be giving you my feedback on the presidential debate. Now, but first, before we get into that, I want to check in with you guys, see how you're doing. If you watched or listened to that last podcast that I released with Max Lowen, hopefully you got some insight out of it. I don't know how much resonated with you guys. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it. But let me know what you think. Because I'm in talks with her. Because I don't know if you picked up on it, but I'm in talks with her. And she's a part of a satanic ritual abuse survivor organization, if you will. I don't know if it's hers or someone she knows. But the point is that she knows a couple other people who are survivors of satanic rituals. And so she came up with an idea after we got off the air to have kind of like a round table with more of them, more people in this field, if you will. And so I'd be really interested to know if you guys have questions for her or for them, right? Because I don't know what you guys would be interested in, right? I don't know what questions would be like on the top of your mind to ask someone who's been in such a unique, horrific life experience. Because I guess there's a piece of me where you could just kind of have all their doom and gloom and, quite frankly, very traumatic experiences. But I feel like there's something more here to be learned. So I'll go with my inner eye whenever we have that. But I am interested in getting some feedback from you guys as to what we should discuss, how the conversation should flow, questions to ask them on like a round table kind of panel. Because that'll be unique. That'll definitely be a first for me and for this podcast. We're able to pull it off. So we have that to look forward to. Something that we all maybe watched or didn't watch was the presidential debate last night. Or well, maybe I guess it would be 2 nights now. Or last night for me, but 2 nights for you. And of course, if you watch all the news pundits, someone's going to say who won, who lost. This person won because X, Y, and Z. This person won because of that. They won this one. But really, at the end of the day, I think the people that are losing are the American people. I mean, I think that there are better ways that these questions could have been answered. And I don't know, because I'm very puzzled at this point. Because whenever I watch them, I do watch them from a perspective of, obviously as a voter, but then even more so as like someone who's going to be in that position one day of how they're answering these questions. And what I'm seeing is just a bunch of attacks again. Who's lying about what? Liar this, liar that. And to me, that doesn't seem like a healthy or a productive conversation. There's times where things are said and it could be very easily picked apart as to how it's not a viable solution for the country or how the country will be better off if that's implemented. And so it comes back to this whole little either gotcha game, which honestly is very easy. I grew up with a very, very intelligent brother and sister, and we played gotcha games the entire time growing up. So I can play that game. That's a very easy game to play. But it doesn't seem to me that that's what's useful to the American people. And so it really got me thinking, is that what it's going to look like? Humbly but, I feel like I see myself at some point, because I don't see any other politicians having the mindset, if you will, that the American Congress Party has, so I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. Is whenever I get into that position, am I supposed to sit there and point out everywhere that this person has lied, or should we actually get into the details of, when you implement a change, especially at the federal level, it has drastic ramifications. So are we going to talk about what those ramifications are? Are we going to discuss how or why these things are a good idea or a bad idea? What's the impact, long term, short term? Because I don't see that at all. And if we're talking about an actual like scholarly intellectual debate, like that's not what's happening. And so it really has me trying to pick apart my viewpoint, if you will, my understanding, my perception on the entire process. Because it very much feels like this teeter of kind of sitting in the middle, don't go too far this way, try to stay in the middle, without truly evaluating ideas, because they're very blanket statements. There really weren't too many, and there were some, don't get me wrong, there were some. But for the vast majority of just like blanket statements, we're going to support women, we're going to support small businesses, we're going to take care of those in need, we're going to reduce taxes. But there's no substance. There's no like true, concrete ideas that are being presented. Or even challenged. And I think that's even more important, right? Which is the challenging of ideas. If you go to their websites, I mean, I heard for the longest time Kamala didn't even have policies on her website. And then I heard she put them up right before the debate. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I heard. So let's say for the sake of argument, they both have policies on their website. Why are we not going policy by policy and saying, okay, are you guys the same on something? Are you different? Instead, it's just kind of like this hand waving. It's just kind of like this, oh, well, yeah, we'll take care of them. We'll do that. Without truly addressing the issues. And maybe the problem is that I'm viewing it as if it's supposed to actually be a debate. And maybe that's a bigger issue. Maybe there's this illusion of a debate that we're supposed to be seeing in front of us, when in reality it's just like a game show. That's the best word I can think of. It's supposed to be this like performance, a performance art. Who feels better, who seems better, who's, more articulate, more calm, if you will. I don't know. I really honestly don't know what it is that we're truly watching whenever we see that. But to have the two people who seem like they're going to be, one of them will seemingly be the, next leader of this country, for us to just put on this performing art, it's not a healthy way forward as Americans. It's really not. And, we can get distracted by trying to argue about who won and who lost, but I'll say it till the death of me, is that the American people lost. The American people lost in that debate. And quite frankly, the one with Biden too. No policies. There were some. Okay, I can't say no policies. But just obviously both of them are lying at points. Like, I just don't, and I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic about how we can fix politics, but like I truly feel like it's very simple. And I just, part of me feels like if you just talk to people, you tell them how you're going to fix things, like that's the key to getting in. And to me, I understand there's a level of, needing to point out the flaws in the other person's argument. But I guess, and maybe this is the big piece that I'm overlooking, is probably this, which is that we make decisions with emotion 9 times out of 10. There's definitely some very logically minded people who will evaluate things, get into the numbers, dive deep. But if we're talking about America as a whole, we probably make a lot of emotional decisions. But I don't understand why you can't blend the two. There has to be a balance here of blending the two. Because you certainly want someone who's charismatic, who's youthful, who's vibrant, who's going to lead our country in the way that it should be led. Where we have prosperity, where we have life, if you will, where we have beauty, where things are better. And it troubles me. It really troubles me that we can't have true specific dialogue over policies. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things play out. I try to look at things, and this could be a helpful piece of advice for people out there. Anyone who's looking maybe, who gets a little too emotional regarding individual events. Because that was me for a long time. Something would happen, you'd get energized, you would jump to your conclusion of what should happen, what policies should be passed, who's at fault, who's right, who's wrong. Take a breath. And zoom out. And so maybe I need to take a little bit of my own advice here, right? Zoom out. So let's zoom out on this event. And what happens to the discord? These are just questions. There's not a precise answer to these questions either. You kind of have to intuitively feel into what is happening. And I truly think this is where like that spirituality comes in when we talk about spiritual politics. Is just zoom out a little bit. Feel intuitively of how these events influence the general discourse, what the media is trying to put into people's ears, the way that people are reacting on X or on Twitter. Realizing what the big focal points become. I truly think that that's the way to get a more wholesome perspective. I think that's where you start reclaiming your power. I think that's where the spiritual guidance starts to take over, because you're now no longer ingrained in the minutia, the physical item. You know, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong here. The physical layer of what's actually occurring, the event, the debate is important. But what I'm offering is another perspective of trying to see it from a higher level, a higher perspective of how is this guiding the course of humanity? How is this guiding the course of the presidency? Who stands to benefit from what just happened? Who stands to lose from what just happened? And it finds a way to detach you emotionally. That's not the right way to articulate that. It finds a way to give you permission to look at events from a more calm and peaceful perspective. Because when you get too narrowed in on specific events, your heart space, your inner eye, starts to become tight and constricted. And you're not too sure, if you will. You're not too... You're not too calm. Is that the right way to word that? You're not too confident in what it is. That's not the right way to phrase it. You're too tight. You're too you can't see the bigger picture. And so by being able to take that step back and asking those questions, right? Who stands to benefit from this? What are the big storylines? What's the general conversation? What are the conversations people are having around me? And try to avoid becoming attached to the person, the item, and look at it from a bigger perspective. And I think that's a huge element in the stage of awakening. And I think that's a huge step in realizing that you need to experience the experience, or experience life. Experience what life has to offer, is being able to sit there and say, okay, how is this guiding the flow of my life, guiding the flow of everyone else's life? Where are the pros? Where are the cons? And so that's really kind of the big enchilada, if you will. At least from my perspective of whenever I look at these things. And again, as it relates to these quote unquote debates, I mean, it makes me feel, and this is probably where that optimism comes in, is it makes me feel optimistic that if by the grace of divinity, the grace of spirit, the grace of nature, I am in that position at some point in time, there's a ton of opportunity to actually talk about real policy changes that can create a tremendous benefit for the people, for you, the people, for the next generation, for the people who are going to live beyond my life. Because my life, your life, it's finite. I know that can be difficult to hear, but it's finite. And so what is the motivation? And so I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. Obviously, I don't have the power at this point to get into the ear of, any of the presidential people, but like there's a tremendous opportunity to just tell people the truth, to be honest, to explain things in a way that are concise, but even more so in a way that you understand the issue, right? Because I think back to like interviews. Like if you're ever on a job interview, one of the most common things they tell you, I don't remember the professional that way, but it's like, they'll ask you a question and then you got to state out the problem, the action you took and the solution, or like the problem, evaluation, action, something like that. And I don't see that happening at all. I really don't see that happening at all. And it's really a shame that, that it's not there. It's really a shame that it's not there. And I think that at the end of the day, it leaves a tremendous amount of opportunity for the next person, or for anyone who can literally just be honest with the American people. Because it seems to me that, for the last, at least most of my lifetime, we've been gaslit. We've been lied to. We've been told that certain things that are important that aren't important. Our money has been sent to foreign countries to decimate and kill innocent people. And it's still happening to this exact day. So it's very, very heartbreaking. And it really, with so much negativity, it leaves a tremendous amount of room for opportunity. So as bleak as everything I've kind of just said there, remind yourself that it means that there's that much opportunity for us to make the world a better place. And you're listening to this, so you have to have a part in that. I don't know exactly what it is, but you definitely have a part in that. As we all do. We all have a part in making this world a better place. We have to leave it better than we found it. And I don't know about you, but there's just like a good feeling. It's like in the heart space, and right in the heart space, that when you leave something somewhere, it could be a room, better than you found it, you just feel good. You should try. Like even my room right now, I'm looking around my studio, and there's probably quite a few things that I could fix up, put in a little bit of tidy up, and I know that I would instantly feel better. And I'm sure the same goes for you as well. And just imagine how good you would feel if you were able to do it at a bigger scale. And of course, that takes more energy, more patience, more time. You have to, clean up your room first, if you will. But once your room's clean and you start moving on to cleaning bigger and better things, it feels good. And it makes other people feel good too. Other people feel good. You feel good. And isn't that like the idea? Like, to me, that just seems like such a human thing that we all have. I've been to 13 countries at this point in my life, and to me, that seems like something that I've seen in every single person, is that nature. Of course, there's bad people, don't get me wrong. It's not perfect, but like not high 90%, like 95% of people, they just like, they enjoy it. It makes them feel good. It makes you feel good. They want to help. It's the simplest way possible, too. And so I don't know, maybe, Max Lowen was talking about it on our most previous podcast, which I highly recommend for what I'm about to say, but maybe they've disconnected. There's people who disconnect from that source, from nature, from spirit, from, classically God. But I feel like God's such a difficult word nowadays because everyone's got a different definition, a different explanation of what God is. I mean, when you distill it down, basically they say the same thing. It's like, okay, it's the creator of everything that's in everyone, yada, yada, yada. But whenever they truly sit there and start describing like what he has done, it changes dramatically. I don't know if you've noticed that. That's an interesting thing about the word God, is that like, and this is usually what kind of deviates out into different religions, but like when they say God, it's like, okay, if you put that into one sentence, it's like 99% of the time it's the same. But then once you start describing actions and things he's done, it changes very quickly. I don't know. That's just an idea I just had. I have to actually sit with that a little bit longer. I haven't fully thought that through. That just kind of came to me. But my point, going back to my point, right, about the disconnection, is like maybe those people in charge are just disconnected at their heart space. I mean, maybe that's, maybe Max is on to it. I mean, I can't. I can't see how or why not people wouldn't want to just make the world a better place. You're in a position of power, make the world a better place. To me, it seems like it'd be so simple, especially when you dive deep enough into all these issues, the way that all these issues are interconnected, whether it's the CIA, the Kufi agents such as Mossad, CIA, MI5, giving all of this money and military equipment to terrorist organizations. Like, we should just stop doing that. It seems like pretty simple. Because our government recently mistakenly gave $250 million to the Taliban. I wish they would mistakenly give me that money. I could do some pretty good stuff with that. But that comes back to the point, right? Is like, zoom out and try to see what's actually going on, like from the bigger picture. And I truly believe that that's where the fine details start to kind of come in. You start to see it, start to see the world turning in a different way. And so I don't know. I mean, Max had a very fascinating upbringing. Very fascinating. We didn't get too much into it in the podcast. We talked about it briefly, but like, she got it from, she was in contact with some people that are in the highest levels of the church, of politics, of everything, the entertainment industries. So like, I don't know. It feels like there has to be some truth to it. And then not to mention, you couple that with the fact of like not feeling good. For example, I feel great when I help people. But if you don't have that, and maybe that's what it is like you need that connection to source, you need that connection to spirit, to nature. But without that, internal connection, you don't feel that. And so you look for feelings in other ways. And so maybe the mass killings of innocent people. Max called it a satanic ritual, these wars. And I mean, look at any war that's ever occurred. Dropping a nuclear bomb, killing hundreds of thousands of people in an instant. Twice? 2 times. People sit there and say like, what type of God, right, that's in the positive context, like would want to do that. And I don't think that that's actually, that's not actually God. That's actually Satan. Which leads to propose that Satan has influence on this world, on this plane of existence. I mean, and what's even crazier, and this is what's so mind-boggling to me, is that this is not new information. This is information that has been discussed for ever since the beginning of time. This is like the oldest story ever written. And yet for some reason, it seems like our generation, or at least maybe not my generation, right? I'm on the bridge between millennials and Gen Z, which is kind of cool, I guess. I like that spot. But maybe the older generations kind of, but I feel like they kind of knew too. But how is it that we're forgetting? How did we forget this? How did this slip through the cracks in our psyche and our mentality that this ever-going spiritual war is going on? I mean, so I say all of this just to, go off of what Max was talking about. And I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that becomes difficult to be like, with absolute certainty. But if you feel into it, you feel into your heart space, you feel into the energies, it makes sense. It puts, let me even put it like this. It puts a lot of things into perspective of like, oh. So I think that's wild. You start to see the things at a bigger picture. And then going back to what we were talking about earlier in regards to not getting caught in the minutia, zoom out. If you zoom out at these things, if these are truly puppets of Satan, I don't know, but think about it that way. Assume they are. For the sake of this conversation, we'll assume they are. If they truly are puppets of Satan and we zoom out, does this create more division in our society? Does it make us more disharmonized? Do we become more confused? Because it feels like we might be. It definitely feels like that is the direction that is nudging humanity at this time. Going slower and slower into the depths of destruction. Destroying the moral fabric of society. Eroding culture. And maybe at some level, don't get me wrong, some level, maybe some of these things are good. But again, I'm not talking about the individual minutia. I'm talking about it at a bigger picture of what is going on, how things are playing out, the way that these things come into the mind, the way we make decisions. So we need good people. We need people who are connected to source, connected to spirit, connected to nature, to join politics. Because here's the thing: is that if they truly are severed, that makes them so much weaker than any of us who are connected. If you're listening to this podcast, you have to be connected. Unless it's like CIA or something that's listening, then hey, how's it going? I'm not going to stop talking. You can try. But that just means that they have to be so scared of the power that we each hold within us. And so we have to leverage that power. We have to find a way to explode that power, to make it more powerful by coming together. And this is where the American Congress Party, I think, comes into the picture. This is truly where we can have people who are connected to source, to spirit, to nature, for them to have power. My gosh. And I really don't think it would take that many people. I mean, you look at, I think Max said that there's probably like 1 million of them, if you will. I don't like saying them, right? But people who have disconnected. Let's say again, I'm kind of just basing this all off of that last conversation with Max. So I highly recommend, hopefully you listen to that before jumping into this. Otherwise it might sound a little crazy. But what I'm getting at here is like, if we're that powerful, if we're so much more powerful than them, we might only need a couple hundred, if that. I wonder if we could even do it with less than 100. What my point is that you don't need too many people to create a power. When people are extremely powerful, you don't need a lot of them to create a massive amount of positive change. And I mean, look, we've got quite a few people with American Congress Party right now. We've got probably 10 people on the team doing amazing work, reaching out to amazing people. Come join. But I can see that the time is running along. But with all that being said, even if you don't help out in the next 5, 10, 15, whatevers, weeks, months, maybe it's not the time yet. Maybe you're still feeling stuff out. Maybe you've got other priorities, which is totally okay. But just know that you are always welcome, and you will always be welcomed with open arms. And I will definitely welcome you with open arms whenever we see each other in the 6th dimension.